Your peace is lost, not because life is difficult, but because your mind has not been trained to govern itself. Before seeking another solution, examine the judgments, desires, and reactions that control your days. When you wake with anxiety, respond with reason. When you face frustration, return to virtue. Subscribe and join this community of people committed to self-examination, discipline, and the daily practice of Stoic wisdom as we learn to live with greater clarity and inner strength. The happiest life is not created by controlling everything around you, but by mastering your own choices and responses. These 10 daily habits will help you separate what belongs to you from what does not, reduce unnecessary suffering, and build a character guided by reason rather than impulse. Each practice will challenge the undisciplined mind and reveal the calm strength that comes from living according to virtue with honesty and awareness today. Number 1. Guard your morning with reason. The first battle of your day is not with your work, your family, or the problems waiting outside your door. It is with your own mind. Before anyone speaks to you, before any message reaches your eyes, before the world demands your attention, your character is already being tested. If you surrender your first thoughts to distraction, fear, or habit, you begin the day as a servant to circumstance instead of its master. But if you guard your morning with reason, you remind yourself of the only truth that matters. Your judgment belongs to you unless you willingly give it away. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love." This is not an invitation to chase pleasant feelings. It is a reminder that waking up is another opportunity to practice virtue. The new day does not promise comfort, success, or praise. It offers something greater. It offers another chance to govern yourself with wisdom instead of impulse. Every sunrise places the same question before you. Will you direct your mind, or will you allow your mind to be directed by everything it encounters? Most people lose this battle within minutes of waking. They reach for noise before they reach for reason. Their attention is captured before it is disciplined. A single message changes their mood. A piece of bad news steals their peace. A memory from yesterday shapes their attitude toward today. Without noticing it, they hand over control of their inner life to events they never chose. Then they wonder why their days feel chaotic. The disorder did not begin in the world. It began in the judgment they failed to examine. The Stoic does something different. Before reacting, he pauses. Before speaking, he reflects. Before allowing emotion to decide the direction of the day, he asks one simple question: what is truly within my control? The answer never changes. Your choices are yours. Your judgments are yours. Your actions are yours. Everything else belongs to fortune. When this distinction becomes the first thought of the morning, the mind gains stability that no unexpected event can easily destroy. This is not positive thinking. It is disciplined thinking. You do not tell yourself that nothing difficult will happen today. That would be self-deception. Instead, you prepare for difficulty without fearing it. You expect delays, misunderstandings, criticism, and disappointment because they are part of human life. Since you expect them, they lose the power to shock you. Since they cannot surprise you, they cannot easily overthrow your reason. You meet each event with the quiet confidence of someone who has already decided that virtue will remain untouched regardless of what the day brings. Try this practice tomorrow morning before your feet touch the floor. Sit in silence for 1 minute. Ask yourself, what kind of person will I choose to be today? Do not ask what will happen. You cannot know that. Ask whether you will remain patient when tested, honest when tempted, and just when treated unfairly. These are questions that belong entirely to you. By answering them before the world interrupts, you place your character above your circumstances. As the day unfolds, return to that morning decision whenever your emotions begin to rise. When someone insults you, remember that their words are not your character. When plans collapse, remember that events obey nature, not your wishes. When frustration appears, remind yourself that your response remains free. Every moment becomes another opportunity to protect the judgment you established at sunrise. Many people spend years trying to control outcomes while neglecting the one thing they actually possess. They organize every detail of their lives, yet leave their own minds unguarded. They seek certainty where none exists, and ignore the certainty already available within their own choices. Happiness never grows from controlling the world. It grows from governing the self with unwavering consistency. Reason is not cold. It is the guardian of peace. It prevents anger from becoming cruelty. It prevents desire from becoming slavery. It prevents fear from becoming surrender. Each morning you strengthen reason. You weaken the habits that have ruled you for years. Slowly your reactions become choices. Your impulses become disciplined. Your days become expressions of character rather than accidents of circumstance. Do not wait for the perfect morning. There will always be unfinished work, unexpected demands, and restless thoughts. The practice begins exactly where you are, with the life already in front of you. Every dawn asks whether you will live according to reason or according to impulse. Every dawn gives you another chance to answer differently than you did yesterday. Guard your morning, because the first judgment often shapes every judgment that follows. If reason stands watch at the beginning of the day, virtue has a place to grow, and when virtue governs the morning, happiness no longer depends on what the world gives or takes away. It rests where it has always belonged, in the disciplined mind that refuses to abandon itself. Number 2, accept what lies beyond control. The greatest source of unnecessary suffering in your life is not always what happens to you. It is the demand you place on reality to be different from what it is. You become exhausted not because life refuses to obey you, but because you continue fighting against things that were never placed under your command. You cannot control another person's opinion, the actions of others, the passing of time, the events that have already happened, or the uncertainty of tomorrow. Yet the mind wastes countless hours trying to possess what it was never given the power to control. The Stoics understood that peace begins when you stop making impossible demands. Epictetus taught that we must distinguish between what depends on us and what does not. This simple discipline changes the entire way you experience life. Your effort, your choices, your honesty, your patience, and your character belong to you. The outcome, the reaction of others, and external circumstances do not. When you confuse these two areas, you create frustration. When you separate them, you regain the ability to live with clarity. Consider how often your mood is decided by things outside yourself. Someone ignores your message, and your mind creates a story of rejection. Someone criticizes you, and you immediately feel attacked. The plan fails, and you believe the day has been ruined. But the event itself is not the master of your emotions. Your judgment about the event is what gives it power. Between what happens and how you respond, there is a moment where reason can enter. That moment is where your freedom exists. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The purpose of this teaching is not to make you indifferent to life. It is to make you responsible for the part of life that belongs to you. You cannot command the world to be peaceful, but you can train yourself to remain peaceful in an unsettled world. You cannot remove every difficulty, but you can remove the weakness that allows difficulty to control your character. Begin practicing this discipline by examining your complaints. Whenever you feel disturbed, ask yourself, am I suffering because of the event or because of the judgment I have added to the event? This question forces the mind to slow down. It separates reality from imagination. Many burdens become lighter when you discover that you have been carrying not the event itself, but the interpretation you created around it. The undisciplined mind immediately reacts. It searches for someone to blame, something to fear, or something to resist. The trained mind pauses and investigates. It does not deny emotions, but it refuses to become controlled by them. Anger may appear, but reason decides what happens next. Fear may appear, but wisdom determines whether fear deserves obedience. Disappointment may appear, but virtue decides whether disappointment will destroy your purpose. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." This does not mean problems are imaginary. It means the mind often multiplies suffering before the actual challenge arrives. You rehearse conversations that never happen. You fear outcomes that never come. You create pain from possibilities and then wonder why you feel exhausted. Stoic practice teaches you to return to the present moment and deal only with the truth that stands before you. A powerful daily exercise is to divide your concerns into two categories. Write down what you can influence and what you cannot. For what you can influence, take responsible action, improve your effort, correct your behavior, speak with honesty. For what you cannot influence, practice acceptance. Not passive surrender, but the recognition that reality does not require your approval before it exists. Acceptance is not weakness, it is the beginning of wisdom. A person who accepts what cannot be changed stops wasting energy fighting reality and starts using that energy to improve themselves. The strongest person is not the one who controls everything around them. It is the person who remains governed by reason when nothing around them can be controlled. Each evening, examine where you allowed external events to disturb your inner judgment. Do not judge yourself with anger. Judge yourself with honesty. Ask where you reacted without thought, where you desired control over what was never yours, and where you forgot that your character is always your responsibility. This reflection is how the mind becomes stronger. Life will continue to bring uncertainty. People will disappoint you. Plans will change. Circumstances will shift without asking for permission. This is not a failure of life. This is the condition of being human. Your task is not to demand a world without difficulty. Your task is to become a person who can meet difficulty without abandoning wisdom. When you stop fighting what cannot be changed, you create space to improve what can be changed. Your thoughts become clearer. Your actions become more deliberate. Your relationships become less controlled by expectation. Your days become guided by reason instead of constant resistance. The world does not need to become easier before you become stronger. Strength begins when you stop asking life to follow your wishes and start asking yourself to live according to virtue. What is beyond your control belongs to nature. What is within your control belongs to your character. Guard what is yours, release what is not, and you will discover the freedom that comes from no longer fighting battles you were never meant to win. Number 3. Rule every judgment calmly. Your life is shaped less by what happens around you and more by the meaning you attach to what happens. Two people can face the same event and experience completely different realities because their judgments are different. One person sees an insult and becomes controlled by anger. Another sees the same insult and chooses patience. The difference is not the event. The difference is the mind that examines the event before accepting it as truth. Most people live as if their first thought is always correct. A feeling appears, and they immediately believe it. A suspicion appears, and they treat it as reality. A painful memory returns, and they allow it to define the present moment. But the Stoic understands that every impression must be examined before it becomes a decision. Your mind receives many impressions every day, but you are not required to obey every one of them. Epictetus taught that it is not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about things. This is one of the greatest disciplines of the Stoic life. The world constantly presents events, but your character is revealed by the judgment you choose afterward. You cannot prevent every thought from entering your mind, but you can decide which thoughts deserve your agreement. Think about how quickly you judge another person. Someone speaks harshly, and you immediately decide they are disrespectful. Someone makes a mistake, and you decide they are careless. Someone disagrees with you, and you decide they are against you. But how often have you judged without knowing the full truth? How often have you allowed assumptions to create anger before understanding the reality? A calm mind does not rush to conclusions. It investigates. It asks, do I truly know this, or am I only reacting to my first impression? This single question can prevent countless moments of regret. It creates a space between what you experience and how you respond. In that space, reason returns. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." This is not a call to ignore reality. It is a reminder that an undisciplined mind can turn even ordinary moments into unnecessary suffering. When your thoughts are ruled by suspicion, comparison, and emotional reactions, your inner life becomes unstable. When your thoughts are guided by reason, even difficult situations become opportunities to practice wisdom. Begin a simple Stoic exercise today. Whenever a strong emotion appears, do not immediately express it. Observe it. Name the judgment behind it. If you feel anger, ask what belief created that anger. If you feel anxiety, ask what assumption created that fear. If you feel resentment, ask what expectation was not fulfilled. By examining the source, you stop being controlled by the surface emotion and begin understanding the movement of your own mind. Seneca warned against allowing anger to lead because anger often acts before reason has spoken. The person who cannot govern their judgments becomes a prisoner of every external event. A careless comment can ruin their day. A small inconvenience can destroy their patience. A change in circumstances can remove their peace. They are not suffering only from what happened. They are suffering from their inability to examine their own response. The disciplined person does not eliminate judgment. They improve it. They do not become passive or unaware. They become more accurate. They learn to separate facts from interpretations. The fact may be that someone spoke loudly. The interpretation may be that they intended disrespect. The fact may be that a plan failed. The interpretation may be that everything is going wrong. Wisdom begins when you stop confusing your interpretation with reality. Practice this during your daily interactions. Before criticizing, seek understanding. Before defending yourself, examine whether your pride has been challenged. Before blaming another person, look honestly at your own contribution. The purpose is not to make yourself weak. The purpose is to remove false judgments that prevent you from seeing clearly. Every evening, review the judgments you made throughout the day. Ask yourself where you reacted too quickly, where emotion replaced reason, and where you accepted an opinion without examination. Do this without excuses and without harshness. The goal is improvement, not punishment. A person who honestly studies their own mind gradually becomes less controlled by unconscious reactions. Your thoughts are not your masters. They are impressions waiting for your judgment. Your emotions are not commands. They are signals waiting for your reason to respond. The moment you understand this, you begin reclaiming responsibility for your inner life. The peaceful person is not someone who never faces difficult situations. It is someone who refuses to surrender wisdom when difficulty appears. They choose their response carefully. They examine before accepting. They think before speaking. They allow reason to guide what emotion wants to control. Every day gives you countless opportunities to practice this discipline. A calm judgment in a difficult moment strengthens your character. A thoughtful response instead of an automatic reaction builds inner freedom. You do not become wise through one great decision. You become wise through thousands of small moments where you choose examination over impulse. Guard your judgments carefully, because they become the foundation of your actions. A person who governs their judgments governs their life. And when the mind learns to see clearly, the world loses its power to disturb what reason has learned to protect. Number 4. Desire less. Appreciate more daily. The human mind often believes it will finally become peaceful when it receives more. More recognition, more possessions, more comfort, more approval. But the person who constantly increases their desires also increases the number of ways they can become disappointed. A life controlled by endless wanting is a life controlled by things that are never guaranteed to remain. The Stoics understood that freedom does not come from possessing everything you want. It comes from no longer being controlled by every desire that appears in your mind. Desire itself is not the enemy. The problem begins when desire becomes stronger than reason. When you believe you cannot be content until something outside yourself changes, you surrender your peace to circumstances you cannot command. Epictetus taught that wealth is not measured by how much a person owns, but by how little they need to be satisfied. This does not mean rejecting responsibility or refusing to improve your life. It means understanding the difference between pursuing something wisely and becoming dependent on it for your happiness. You can work toward success while remaining peaceful without it. You can appreciate comfort while knowing you can live without it. Look honestly at your own desires. How many things do you believe you need that you once lived without? How many possessions that once excited you have become ordinary? How often have you reached a goal and immediately created another requirement for happiness? The restless mind always moves the finish line. It convinces you that peace exists somewhere ahead, but never allows you to experience it where you are. This is why the Stoic practices appreciation. Appreciation is not pretending that everything is perfect. It is seeing clearly what already exists without demanding that reality provide more before you can be grateful. A person who appreciates what they have is not weak in ambition. They are stronger because their motivation is not built on constant dissatisfaction. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." The lesson is not that external things have no value. The lesson is that they should never become the foundation of your inner stability. When your peace depends on possessions, praise, or circumstances, you become vulnerable to losing peace whenever those things change. Begin practicing the discipline of wanting less. Each morning, choose one comfort you normally depend on and remind yourself that you are capable without it. This does not need to be extreme. It can be as simple as delaying a small pleasure, accepting a minor inconvenience, or spending time without constant entertainment. The purpose is to teach your mind that desire is a servant, not a ruler. A person who cannot tolerate small discomforts becomes controlled by every craving. They become impatient when things are delayed. They become frustrated when life does not provide immediate satisfaction. But the trained mind learns that discomfort is not always a problem to remove. Sometimes it is an opportunity to strengthen self-control. Seneca practiced reflecting on simplicity because he understood that a person should know they can live with less. When you voluntarily experience less comfort, you discover that many fears were created by attachment rather than necessity. You begin to understand that losing certain external things would not destroy you because your character remains untouched. Examine the desires that consume your attention. Do you want something because it serves a meaningful purpose, or because you are comparing yourself with others? Do you seek recognition because it improves your character, or because you want others to confirm your worth? Do you chase possessions because they are useful, or because you hope they will remove an emptiness that only inner discipline can address? The Stoic does not reject life's gifts. The Stoic receives them with gratitude while remaining prepared to let them go. Everything external is temporary. Your body changes, circumstances change, relationships change, possessions change. The wise person enjoys these things without pretending they belong to them forever. Practice gratitude at the end of each day by naming what was already enough, not what you wish had happened, not what someone else received, not what is missing. Focus on what was present: your health, your ability to think, your opportunity to act with virtue, and your chance to improve your character are all reasons to appreciate this moment. A mind trained to appreciate becomes difficult to disturb. It does not need constant rewards to remain steady. It does not measure life only by achievements or possessions. It recognizes that the greatest possession is a disciplined mind that can remain content while still striving to become better. The endless pursuit of more can make a person rich in things but poor in peace. The disciplined reduction of unnecessary desire creates space for wisdom. When you stop demanding that life constantly satisfy you, you begin experiencing life with greater clarity. Do not measure your happiness by what you have gained. Measure it by how well you govern your desires. A person who needs less is harder to control. A person who appreciates more is harder to disturb, and a person who places their peace within virtue discovers a form of happiness that cannot be purchased, taken, or destroyed by changing circumstances. Number 5. Speak only when necessary. Many people believe that power comes from having the right words at the right moment. They rush to explain themselves, defend their opinions, correct others, and prove that they are right. But the undisciplined tongue often reveals an undisciplined mind. A person who cannot control their speech usually cannot control their impulses. They speak from emotion, from pride, from the desire to be seen, and later they regret what reason would have prevented. The Stoic understands that silence is not weakness. Silence is a form of self-command. When you choose not to speak unnecessarily, you are not losing your voice. You are proving that your emotions do not control your actions. Every word is a choice, and every choice reveals the condition of your character. The world constantly invites you to react. Someone makes a careless comment, and you feel the need to respond immediately. Someone misunderstands you, and you rush to defend your reputation. Someone shares an opinion you dislike, and you feel compelled to correct them. But ask yourself honestly, how many of these moments truly require your words? How many responses create wisdom, and how many only create more conflict? Epictetus taught that we should first understand the nature of what we are about to say before allowing it to leave our mouth. Speech should serve reason, not emotion. Before speaking, examine your intention. Are you speaking to improve the situation, or are you speaking because your pride feels threatened? Are you offering something useful, or are you simply seeking approval? A disciplined person does not need to answer every accusation. They do not need to defend every decision. They do not need to prove their value to every person who questions them. Their character is not strengthened by constant explanation. It is strengthened by consistent action. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be one." This teaching reminds us that actions carry more weight than endless words. A person who constantly explains their goodness may be focused more on appearance than reality. The person who quietly practices virtue has no need to convince everyone of who they are. Speaking less does not mean becoming silent in every situation. Stoicism does not teach avoidance. It teaches intentional communication. There are times when truth must be spoken, injustice must be addressed, and guidance must be offered. But even then, the wise person speaks from calm judgment rather than uncontrolled emotion. Practice this discipline today. Before responding, create a moment of silence. Let the first emotional impulse pass. Ask yourself 3 questions. Is it true? Is it necessary? Is it the right time? If your words do not improve understanding, correct a mistake, or express genuine care, silence may be the wiser choice. Many conflicts survive because people are more interested in winning conversations than improving relationships. They listen only to prepare their next argument. They speak only to protect their ego. They forget that the purpose of communication is not to defeat another person. It is to act with wisdom and respect. Seneca warned about the dangers of uncontrolled anger because angry speech often creates wounds that cannot easily be repaired. A sentence spoken in a moment of frustration can damage trust built over years. This is why the Stoic trains the tongue together with the mind. The mouth should not move faster than judgment. Observe your daily conversations. Notice how often you speak about things that do not matter. Notice how often you complain, criticize, or repeat opinions without purpose. These habits reveal where your attention is being wasted. By becoming aware of unnecessary speech, you begin removing unnecessary disturbance from your life. A powerful Stoic exercise is to dedicate periods of your day to deliberate silence. Not because silence itself is valuable, but because it trains awareness. In silence, you begin noticing your impulses. You see the urge to interrupt. You notice the desire to be praised. You recognize the need to be right. This observation gives you the opportunity to choose differently. The person who controls their speech gains control over many other areas of life. They become less reactive. They create fewer regrets. They become more capable of listening, understanding, and responding with wisdom. Their words become fewer but stronger because each one comes from thought rather than impulse. Remember that your reputation is not built by how much you say about yourself. It is built by how consistently you live. The person who lives according to virtue does not need constant approval from others. Their actions provide the evidence. Every day presents countless opportunities to practice restraint. A disagreement, a criticism, a temptation to gossip, or a moment of frustration can become a lesson in self-government. The question is not whether you have something to say. The question is whether your reason has something worth saying. Guard your words because they reveal your inner condition. A calm mind produces thoughtful speech. A restless mind produces unnecessary noise. When you learn to speak only when wisdom requires it, you stop giving your energy to empty reactions and begin using your voice as an instrument of virtue. Number 6. Welcome difficulty as training. The natural instinct of the human mind is to avoid difficulty. We look for the easier path, the comfortable choice, and the situation that demands the least from us. But a life built around avoiding hardship slowly weakens the very qualities needed to face life with dignity. A person who escapes every challenge never discovers the strength they are capable of developing. The Stoics understood that difficulty is not always an enemy. Many hardships are opportunities to train the mind, strengthen character, and reveal whether our principles are real or only ideas we speak about. Anyone can claim to be patient when nothing tests them. Anyone can claim to be courageous when there is nothing to fear. Character becomes visible when circumstances demand something from you. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, The obstacle is the way. This does not mean every painful event is good by itself. It means your response to difficulty can become a source of growth when guided by reason. The challenge may arrive without your permission, but the choice of how you meet it remains yours. Consider the moments when life does not follow your expectations. A person disappoints you. A goal takes longer than expected. A responsibility becomes heavier than you imagined. Your first reaction may be frustration because the mind believes difficulty should not exist. But this belief creates unnecessary suffering. Reality has never promised constant ease. The wise person does not demand a life without challenges. They prepare themselves to meet challenges with virtue. Epictetus taught that circumstances reveal what is within us. A difficult situation does not create your character. It exposes the character you have trained. When pressure appears, impatience comes out if impatience has been practiced. Anger appears if anger has been allowed to grow. Fear takes control if the mind has never learned discipline. This is why the Stoic welcomes difficulty as training. Not because suffering is enjoyable, but because every challenge gives you a chance to practice what you value. A delay can train patience. A criticism can train humility. A disagreement can train self-control. A failure can train perseverance. The event itself is not your teacher. Your conscious response to the event is. Begin changing your relationship with difficulty by removing the question, "Why is this happening to me?" Replace it with a better question, "What virtue does this moment require from me?" This shift transforms your attention. Instead of searching for someone to blame, you search for the quality of character needed to respond well. When something difficult appears, do not immediately label it as a disaster. Pause and examine it. Ask what part of the situation belongs to your responsibility. Ask what action would reflect wisdom rather than emotion. Ask whether your reaction is making the problem heavier or helping you carry it with greater strength. Seneca practiced preparing the mind for hardship because he understood that unexpected difficulty often feels unbearable only to the unprepared mind. When you regularly remind yourself that comfort is temporary and circumstances change, you become less dependent on perfect conditions. You stop being surprised by the reality of human life. A practical Stoic exercise is to intentionally choose small challenges that strengthen discipline. Take a simple inconvenience without complaint. Delay a comfort you normally seek immediately. Complete a task you would rather avoid. The purpose is not punishment. The purpose is to teach yourself that discomfort is something you can experience without losing control of your judgment. Many people believe strength comes from removing every obstacle from their path. But strength comes from developing the ability to remain steady when obstacles appear. A person who depends on comfort becomes fragile because any disturbance feels unbearable. A person who trains themselves through difficulty becomes more capable of facing uncertainty without abandoning reason. Do not waste difficult moments by only wishing they were different. Use them. Let them reveal where your discipline is weak. Let them show where your patience needs improvement. Let them expose the desires and fears that still control you. Every challenge contains information about the person you currently are. The purpose of Stoic practice is not to make you emotionless. It is to make you governed by wisdom instead of ruled by uncontrolled reactions. You will still feel frustration. You will still experience disappointment. You will still encounter pain. But these experiences no longer need to decide who you become. Each evening, examine one difficult moment from your day. Ask whether you responded according to your principles or according to your impulses. Do not hide from the answer. Honest examination is the beginning of improvement. The person who refuses to see their weaknesses cannot transform them. Life will continue testing you because testing is part of being alive. The question is not whether challenges will come. The question is whether you will meet them as a victim of circumstance or as a student of virtue. Difficulty is not proof that life has turned against you. It is a reminder that your character is still being shaped. The calm mind does not ask for an easier path. It asks for the wisdom and discipline to walk whatever path appears with courage, patience, and self-command. Number 7. Practice gratitude without attachment. A grateful person and an attached person may appear similar from the outside, but their inner worlds are completely different. One appreciates what is present while understanding that nothing external is guaranteed. The other believes peace depends on keeping what they have. When something changes, one remains steady while the other feels destroyed. The difference is not what they possess. The difference is whether they have learned to appreciate without becoming a servant to what they appreciate. The Stoic does not reject the gifts of life. The Stoic receives them with awareness. Good health, meaningful relationships, opportunities, and moments of comfort are worthy of appreciation, but they are not the foundation of a stable mind. The mistake begins when you transform something valuable into something you believe you cannot live without. The moment you believe your peace depends on keeping something forever, you create fear around it. Epictetus taught that we should remember the temporary nature of everything external. This awareness is not meant to create sadness. It is meant to create clarity. When you understand that circumstances can change, you stop taking ordinary blessings for granted. You become more present with what exists now instead of constantly fearing what may disappear later. Look at your own life honestly. How often do you overlook what you have because your attention is fixed on what is missing? How often does your mind move past today's blessings and immediately search for the next thing to acquire? The restless mind is rarely satisfied because it has not learned the discipline of appreciation. It keeps demanding more while failing to recognize what is already enough. Gratitude in Stoicism is not simply saying that you are thankful. It is training the mind to see reality accurately. It is recognizing that many things you complain about are things you once hoped to receive. The comfort you ignore today may have been a desire of your past self. The people you take for granted may not always be present. The ordinary moments you dismiss are still part of the limited time you have. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Dwell on the beauty of life. Watch the stars and see yourself running with them." This reflection teaches the mind to observe existence with humility and appreciation. It reminds you that life is not only a collection of problems to solve, it is also an opportunity to recognize what is already in front of you. But gratitude must remain free from attachment. If you become unable to imagine life without something, you have allowed that thing to control you. The Stoic appreciates a possession, but remains prepared to live without it. The Stoic values relationships, but understands that every human connection exists within the uncertainty of time. The Stoic enjoys success, but does not allow success to determine their worth. Practice this discipline by occasionally reminding yourself that everything external is temporary, not with fear, but with acceptance. Look at the people you love and appreciate their presence today. Use your resources wisely and be thankful for their usefulness. Enjoy moments of comfort while remembering that your ability to live well comes from your character, not from your circumstances. Seneca often reflected on simplicity because he understood that a person who knows they can live with less is far more free than someone who is controlled by abundance. The person who depends on constant comfort becomes anxious whenever comfort is threatened. The person who has trained themselves to appreciate without clinging remains calm because their stability comes from within. A practical exercise is to begin each day by naming 3 things you already have that require no improvement. Do not search for something impressive. Choose simple realities: the ability to think clearly, the chance to act with integrity, the presence of another day to practice wisdom. This exercise trains the mind to recognize value before it begins demanding more. Also, examine your complaints. When you feel frustration about something missing, ask yourself whether the absence truly affects your ability to live with virtue. Often, the mind exaggerates inconvenience and turns it into suffering. A disciplined person does not deny difficulties, but they refuse to allow unnecessary dissatisfaction to dominate their attention. Gratitude without attachment creates a rare balance. You can enjoy life without being controlled by it. You can care deeply without becoming fearful. You can appreciate what you have without believing your happiness depends on keeping it forever. The wise person does not wait for loss to teach appreciation. They practice appreciation while things are still present. They do not need life to take something away before recognizing its value. They understand that every moment is temporary, and this awareness makes each moment more meaningful. Do not allow your desires to blind you to your blessings. Do not let your pursuit of what is next prevent you from seeing what is already here. The calm and grateful mind does not measure life only by what it gains. It measures life by how well it responds to what it has been given. Appreciate everything, cling to nothing, and remember that your greatest possession is the character you build within yourself. External things may come and go, but a disciplined mind remains capable of gratitude in every circumstance. Number 8. Examine your actions every evening. A person who refuses to examine their life is forced to repeat the same mistakes with the confidence that nothing needs to change. The passing of time does not automatically create wisdom. Years can pass while the same weaknesses remain untouched. Growth begins only when you are willing to look honestly at your own actions and ask whether they reflect the person you claim to be. The Stoics understood that self-examination is not a moment of self-criticism. It is a daily responsibility. The purpose is not to attack yourself for your failures, but to see clearly where your judgments, choices, and habits are moving you away from virtue. A person who never reflects remains controlled by unconscious patterns. A person who examines themselves gains the ability to choose differently. At the end of each day, before you allow yourself to rest, turn your attention inward. Do not ask whether the day was perfect. It was not. No human day is free from mistakes. Ask instead whether you acted according to reason. Did you respond with patience when you were challenged? Did you allow anger to guide your words? Did you choose what was right or what was merely comfortable? Marcus Aurelius practiced daily reflection because he understood that a person must constantly correct themselves. He wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." This reminds us that our repeated choices shape who we become. A single action may seem small, but the habits created by those actions eventually form our character. Many people examine the behavior of others more carefully than they examine themselves. They notice every mistake, every weakness, and every failure around them while remaining blind to their own reactions. This is a refusal to practice wisdom. The person seeking improvement must first become honest about their own mind. Look back at your day without excuses. If someone upset you, examine your reaction. Did you respond from strength or from wounded pride? If you avoided a responsibility, ask why. Was it because the task was impossible or because you lacked discipline? If you complained, investigate whether the complaint revealed a real problem or simply a desire for life to be easier. Epictetus taught that progress begins when a person recognizes their own weakness instead of pretending to already possess wisdom. This requires humility. The mind that believes it has nothing to learn cannot improve. The mind that admits its errors creates the possibility of transformation. Create an evening practice of honest review. Sit quietly for a few minutes and replay the important moments of your day. Identify one action that reflected your values and one action that needs correction. Do not make empty promises. Choose one specific improvement for tomorrow. Small corrections repeated consistently create a disciplined life. Your mistakes are not your identity, but ignoring them allows them to become your pattern. A person who examines their failures with honesty gains knowledge. A person who hides from them remains trapped by them. Seneca emphasized the importance of reviewing our own lives because time is constantly passing and cannot be recovered. The question is not only how many days you have lived, but how consciously you have lived them. A day without reflection can disappear without leaving wisdom behind. A day examined carefully can become a lesson that improves every day that follows. The evening review also protects you from blaming circumstances for everything. It forces you to recognize your own responsibility. Perhaps someone behaved unfairly toward you, but you still control whether you respond with bitterness. Perhaps the day was difficult, but you still control whether you abandon your principles. Reflection returns your attention to the part of life where your power exists. Do not use this practice to create guilt. Guilt without action is only another form of distraction. Use reflection as a tool for correction. The goal is not to prove that you are flawed. The goal is to become less controlled by those flaws. Every evening provides a quiet opportunity to meet yourself without distraction. No audience, no image to protect, no excuses to maintain. Only your own judgment and the truth of how you lived that day. The person who reviews their actions regularly becomes more aware of their choices. They recognize harmful habits earlier. They notice emotional reactions before those reactions become destructive. They become more deliberate because they understand that every action is shaping the person they are becoming. Do not wait for a major failure to teach you what daily reflection could have revealed. Wisdom is built through small moments of awareness. The examined life is not created through one dramatic transformation. It is created every night when you have the courage to ask yourself the truth. Before sleep, return to your actions, your thoughts, and your decisions. Learn from what happened. Correct what needs correction. Carry the lesson forward. A person who examines themselves each evening does not simply pass through life. They participate in their own improvement with awareness, discipline, and reason. Number 9. Choose virtue over temporary pleasure. Every day you are faced with a choice that most people never consciously recognize. You can follow the desire that demands immediate satisfaction, or you can follow reason toward the person you truly want to become. This choice appears in small moments. Whether you keep a promise to yourself, whether you control an impulse, whether you choose discipline when comfort is available. These moments may seem insignificant, but they are the places where character is formed. The Stoics understood that pleasure itself is not evil. The problem begins when pleasure becomes the master of your decisions. When you allow every desire to lead you, you slowly lose command over yourself. A person who cannot say no to temporary comfort eventually becomes controlled by whatever feeling appears strongest in the moment. Epictetus taught that freedom belongs to the person who has mastery over themselves. If your desires command your actions, you may appear free on the outside while being controlled internally. True strength is not having every desire fulfilled. True strength is having the ability to choose what is right even when a desire pulls you in another direction. Look honestly at your daily choices. How often do you choose what feels good now while creating difficulty for your future self? How often do you avoid a necessary task because comfort feels easier? How often do you exchange long-term character for a moment of satisfaction? The undisciplined mind focuses only on the present feeling. The rational mind considers the person those choices are creating. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Your actions begin with your judgments. If you believe every urge must be satisfied, you will constantly chase what is temporary. If you train your mind to value wisdom, courage, and self-control, your choices begin to reflect something greater than immediate comfort. The Stoic does not reject enjoyment. The Stoic simply refuses to become dependent on it. A good meal can be appreciated without becoming a necessity. Rest can be enjoyed without becoming an escape from responsibility. Success can be welcomed without becoming the measure of your worth. The difference is not in the external thing. The difference is whether your reason remains in control. Begin practicing this discipline by creating a pause between desire and action. When you feel an impulse, do not immediately obey it. Observe it. Ask yourself, will this choice strengthen my character or weaken it? This question moves you beyond the temporary emotion and reconnects you with your principles. Many people believe discipline means denying themselves all happiness. They misunderstand the purpose of Stoic practice. Discipline is not a punishment. It is the ability to protect what matters most. A person who cannot control small desires often discovers that larger desires control their entire life. A person who trains self-command in small moments develops strength for greater challenges. Seneca warned about the dangers of being ruled by excess because a person who always seeks more pleasure becomes less capable of appreciating anything. Constant satisfaction weakens appreciation. Constant indulgence weakens restraint. The mind becomes accustomed to receiving rather than choosing. Practice voluntary restraint in simple ways. Choose not to immediately satisfy every craving. Complete your responsibilities before seeking entertainment. Sit with moments of boredom instead of escaping instantly. These small acts teach your mind an important truth. You are capable of experiencing desire without being controlled by it. Also, examine the difference between what you want and what you need. The mind often creates false necessities. It tells you that you need approval, comfort, recognition, or constant stimulation. But when you question these demands, you discover that many of them are only preferences. A wise person knows the difference between a genuine need and an uncontrolled attachment. The pursuit of virtue requires sacrifice because becoming better always requires leaving something behind. You may need to leave behind laziness, impatience, excuses, and habits that provide comfort but prevent growth. The person who refuses to sacrifice temporary pleasure often sacrifices something far more valuable: their own character. Each evening, review the choices you made. Where did you act from reason? Where did you surrender to impulse? Do not hide from the answer. The purpose of reflection is to strengthen your ability to choose well tomorrow. A life guided only by pleasure becomes unstable because pleasure changes constantly. What satisfies you today may disappoint you tomorrow. But virtue remains valuable in every circumstance. Patience helps you in difficulty. Wisdom helps you in uncertainty. Courage helps you in fear. Self-control protects you from your own weaknesses. The greatest victory is not defeating another person. It is defeating the part of yourself that wants the easier path when the better path is available. Every moment of restraint is a moment of self-respect. Every choice guided by reason strengthens the person you are becoming. Do not ask only, "What do I want right now?" Ask the deeper question, "What choice allows me to live according to my highest principles?" The answer to that question is where lasting fulfillment begins. Temporary pleasures disappear quickly, but the character you build through disciplined choices remains with you. Choose what strengthens your mind. Choose what improves your actions. Choose virtue over impulse, because a person who governs themselves possesses the one thing no external pleasure can provide: a life directed by wisdom. Number 10. End each day in peace. A peaceful ending to the day does not come from having a perfect day. It comes from knowing that you faced the day with honesty and did not abandon your principles when life tested you. Many people go to sleep carrying the weight of unfinished thoughts, regrets, anger, and worries because they never take the time to examine what happened within their own minds. The Stoic understands that the end of the day is not only a time for rest, it is a time for reflection. The moments before sleep provide an opportunity to look back at your choices, your reactions, and your intentions. Without this reflection, the same weaknesses continue unnoticed. With reflection, each day becomes a lesson that improves the next. The mind that never reviews itself becomes careless. It repeats patterns without understanding them. It reacts in the same ways, makes the same mistakes, and wonders why life feels unchanged. But the person who examines their actions creates a relationship with themselves based on truth rather than illusion. Seneca practiced evening reflection by reviewing his own actions and asking where he had failed to act according to wisdom. He understood that a person must be willing to confront themselves before they can improve themselves. The purpose is not to create shame. The purpose is to create awareness. You cannot correct what you refuse to see. Before you sleep tonight, ask yourself, did I act with patience today? Did I allow my emotions to control my decisions? Did I treat others with fairness? Did I spend my attention on what truly mattered? These questions are not meant to judge you harshly. They are meant to return you to responsibility. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do every act of your life as though it were your very last." This does not mean living with fear. It means living with awareness. It means recognizing that each day is a complete part of your life, not something to rush through while waiting for a better future. The way you end each day reveals whether you are living deliberately or simply being carried by habit. Many people seek peace by escaping their thoughts. They fill every quiet moment with distraction because silence forces them to face themselves. But the Stoic does not fear self-examination. Silence becomes a place where honesty can exist. When distractions disappear, you can finally hear the thoughts that have been influencing your choices. Practice creating a few minutes of quiet before sleep. Put aside the noise of the day. Do not focus on what others did wrong. Do not replay every external event you could not control. Turn your attention toward your own conduct. The question is not whether the world behaved perfectly. The question is whether you remain faithful to your values. Epictetus taught that the most important task is to improve what belongs to us, our choices, our judgments, and our character. Evening reflection brings your attention back to this responsibility. It reminds you that tomorrow does not require a completely different world. It requires a more disciplined version of yourself. If you made mistakes today, accept them without excuses. A mistake recognized becomes a lesson. A mistake defended becomes a habit. The wise person does not waste energy protecting their ego from the truth. They use truth as a guide for improvement. Also recognize where you acted well. The Stoic does not only search for faults, they also acknowledge progress. If you remained calm in a situation where you once would have reacted, notice that. If you chose patience where impatience was easier, recognize that. Improvement grows when the mind learns from both failure and success. The peaceful ending of a day comes from knowing you have done your part. You controlled what was yours to control. You acted according to reason as best as you could. You accepted what was outside your power. You prepared your mind to begin again tomorrow with greater wisdom. Do not carry unnecessary burdens into the night. The past cannot be changed, but it can teach you. The opinions of others cannot be controlled, but your response can. The mistakes of today cannot be erased, but they can become the foundation of better choices. A person who ends each day with reflection slowly becomes a different person. They become more aware of their thoughts, more careful with their actions, and more responsible for their character. They stop living accidentally because they have learned to examine the direction of their own life. Each night is a chance to return to yourself, review the day, learn from it, release what cannot be changed, commit to what can be improved, then rest with a clear mind, knowing that tomorrow will bring another opportunity to practice wisdom. Peace does not come from avoiding life's challenges. It comes from knowing you met them with honesty and discipline. End each day not with regret over what you lacked, but with gratitude for the chance to continue becoming better. A calm mind at night is created by a life guided by reason during the day.